Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another current affairs show for L4GTV. I'm Chris Ogle, and I'm going to be hosting the show today. My regular co-host Neil Emery is with another group tonight, doing something else, so he can't join us. But I am joined by two lovely ladies. I've got Emma James, who's, if you watched the previous show, was on our last health and wellness show, which is what we're talking about again tonight, but it's week 2 of health and wellness, actually the 8th show that we've done. So come and say hello, Emma.
Oh, hi, Chris. Yeah, it's seems like a while ago now since the last one, but it's good to be back. Yeah, so I'm joining here from Langford. So good to be here. Thank you.
So Langford is up near Biggleswade. So just for those people who don't know why you're interested in health and wellness, do you want to just share a little bit about your interest in the subjects we're going to be talking about tonight?
Yeah, I mean, my main area of interest in health and wellness is around mental and emotional well-being and addictions, and so in a nutshell, that's the people who I support are people who are struggling with emotional challenges and addictions as well, and as well as my kind of background and training in the NHS and mental health services and psychology and things like that. I also have my own lived experience in that area, and so for me, it's a whole person package. So it's not just about focusing on the mental health or or the addiction, or it's about looking at the physical health and everything, the whole person. So that's where I am.
Well, of course, actually, everything starts with a thought, doesn't it? So if the thought's gone horribly wrong, that's a bad start, really. So Anne Peckham, you join us for the first time, and we've got a few technical issues. So unfortunately, we are unable to see you in all your glory, but you are joining us with sound. So come and say hello and tell us a little bit about Anne.
Hello, Chris. And I even changed my top specifically to be on here, and you can't see me. Right. Well, yes, I have been into health situations for at least the last 8 years, because although I'd been a vegetarian since I was 15, I wasn't a very good one, and had all kinds of health issues which came about 9 years ago, and it frightened me so much that I decided to go on a different journey, and I actually became a raw vegan, and I've written several books on the subject, and I have a newsletter which goes out regularly, which helps people to discover why what they might be eating could be causing them problems. So that's what I do.
Fabulous. And I have I for a couple of months now, in 2012 I think it was, I did it, and I also did it again this year. I went raw for a month. So I know a little bit about the challenges that your fridge doesn't look quite the same when you're raw as it does when you're cooking food. It's got different things in it.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so we're on the second week. I'm just going to run through for the people who are watching the show what we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk about, first of all, who cares about your health, because it sounds like a strange question, but a lot of people opting out of taking responsibility for their own health. So we'll just talk a little bit about that. And then health at the individual level. Of course, we're moving into a completely different era in terms of data capture, what we've got available to us in all sorts of different ways. So we are actually able to take much more personal responsibility for our health than we've ever done before. So we're entering some really quite exciting times for the health and wellness industry. I want to talk a little bit about the myths about cholesterol and fat. And I did a video on this, which you can watch on YouTube, about about cholesterol and the myths about it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to talk about low-fat products and dietary and how wonderful they are for you. And then we're going to talk about processed foods and sugar. A lot of been in the news recently about sugar. And then a little bit about diabetes and why that's on the rise, which is one of a few different illnesses that we are being afflicted by these days. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the costs of diabetes and also being obese. There's a huge amount of people in that state these days. Then we're going to talk a little bit about cell replication. Not that I think we've got bioscientists with us tonight, but about replication of cells and cancer, which of course is an issue about cell replication. So that's the topics we've got on the show tonight. So we'll start off with who cares about your health. And the reason this one's in here is because actually if there are a lot of people out there go to the doctors, go to the hospital, and they're looking for a tablet or something in a box that's going to fix them. And it's not as easy as that, is it, Emma?
Well, in a nutshell, no, it's not. Last time we started this conversation, we were here for hours. So, you know, and I'm sure there's going to be ongoing discussions about this, obviously. Yeah, and I think that's the thing from my point of view. It's, you know, it's always about going back to the why do we go. We don't really need to go to the doctors anymore to they don't want us to go there anymore for the common cold. There's signs all over the place saying, if you're coughing and sneezing, don't come in here, and because people are getting overrun, and the doctor surgeries, are getting overrun with people sort of going, and for me, I will always come back to, where we are as a society and the whole quick fix, idea. And from what I've learned about about my own health, quite often it's kind of gone the other way. Rather than going, oh, I've got this pain, or I've got this sensation, or I've got this thing, and then heading straight to the doctors within 5 minutes to say, right, I've got this thing here and this thing here and this thing, what is it? What I will do first is kind of sort of try and assess myself, what's kind of going on there. Is there something I can do instantly? Because actually, maybe in the circles that I mix in quite often, I can go onto a couple of naturopath friends' homepages on Facebook, and they've instantly got some kind of, if you eat some, if you have some lemon and honey, then your throat's going to feel better. And if you get, so for me now, it's about kind of trying to sort of be able to learn from my own body what's going on before I then go on to the next stage. So the doctors is kind of a further stage down the line if I can't remedy something myself. And of course we're the opposite way around in general as a society, where we kind of have some small piece of discomfort, we instantly want it fixed. And for me as well, with the emotional health, and also the kind of holistic healing side of things as well, first thing I'm going to ask myself if I have some physical pain or anything is, okay, what's going on for me at the moment? What situations do I have in my life at the moment? Am I under a lot of stress? Have I been sleeping okay? What's my eating like? Oh gosh, I haven't eaten breakfast or lunch for the last 2 weeks. Maybe that's got something to do with it. Why haven't I had the time to eat breakfast and lunch for the last 2 weeks? Oh well, because I've got this worry going on, or I'm working too many hours, or you know what I mean? So it's more about being sensible, I think, about why we might be feeling unwell or something before we kind of rush off for this expert advice on something when they don't really know us.
You're this is quite interesting, because you're talking about their self-awareness. You're talking about a lot of if you like, you know you, and you know your body. You spend quite a lot of time trying to fathom that out, and you're now saying, well, actually, I know when I do this, I get this kind of thing, and therefore I'm going to look and assess myself, and I'm sure I'm going to find an answer in there, and I bet you what, 99% of the time you do.
Yeah.
And it's really an important thing. And Anne, you know, your story must be full of self-awareness, realization.
Yes, very much so. I was working in the NHS some years ago and was given the opportunity to go for a medical. Now, I'd been the sort of person that used to go along to the doctor for various different things. I'd been on antibiotics, I'd been on all sorts of things for many years. In fact, I had suffered with chronic sinusitis and acne and a whole range of other things for which the doctor prescribed things like steroid cream. And unfortunately, the steroid cream made I had cold sores all around my nose, and the steroid cream made them very, very, very sore. And I didn't know what to do, so I went to see a friend, and she gave me some aloe vera leaf. I applied the aloe vera leaf to the cold sores, and within 2 days they had completely vanished.
Wow.
It totally transformed the way that I perceived the ways that doctors were supposedly the experts in my health. And after the medical, I discovered that I was actually verging on obese. Unfortunately, you can't see me, so you'll not know that I'm not that anymore. However, you have met me, so you know that I'm not.
Yeah.
And I realized that by cutting down and eventually cutting out dairy completely from my own diet, I reduced the pain of the sinusitis that I got every single winter. The problem with it also was that I got hay fever every summer as well. And this meant that although I was a cheeseaholic, and I really was, I would have on a Saturday I'd go for a cheese and onion roll, and with that I'd have cheesy chips. and I would have cheese with everything. I really was a cheeseaholic, and the very idea that I could actually cut cheese out of my life didn't seem possible. I became raw before I became vegan. And so in the process of eliminating and discovering what was going on with my system, because I started doing lots and lots of research, finding out about what was likely to be causing me problems, not looking at the medical model, which of course the medical model uses pharmaceuticals. I didn't want to use pharmaceuticals anymore. I wanted to see if there was another way of doing it. And so in the process of doing that, I discovered that dairy creates a mucus throughout the whole body that then triggers a whole range of health problems, including the fact that you cannot absorb the nutrients in your food because your colon is lined with a thick rubbery mucus. And so I've actually done 2 extensive colon cleanses and brought out some impressive rubber from inside me. And I know that they were impressive because I'm pretty ghoulish, and I actually captured them and photographed them.
And that made them into a couple of dinghies.
It would have been a very small dinghy, but yes, I could have done.
What you've described there, well, not about the last bit, but what you've described there is a journey of self-awareness. And I think what we've got to, we can't tell people that they've got to be aware of their bodies. You can't tell people, look, stop eating McDonald's twice a day, and on the day off, go and gorge yourself on cheese. We can't tell people to stop doing that. All we can do is try and help those people to understand that, if they're going to continue to take that, abuse their body really, they're going to probably shorten their life. They're going to increase their risk of cancer. They're going to do all these other things. And it's a bit like stopping smoking, really, although I've never smoked. At the end of the day, you know, you get that classic, well, I could get run over by a bus tomorrow. I don't know many people that have been run over by a bus.
No.
I think it's a rather lame excuse, to be fair. But people have to become more aware. And really interesting thing is, like, there is a generation difference. Like, I know when I talk to my mother, for example, the doctor is almost revered in this person of great knowledge and importance, and actually they don't know you at all, really. They've got a list of drugs, a list of symptoms, and it's just like matching one against the other, and if they don't know the answer, they signpost you off to see somebody else. So actually becoming aware of yourself is fundamentally important, because without that, you know, you're just a rudderless ship floating about, bobbing about in the sea. And like headache pills, for example, I mean, actually most people, when they got a headache, are dehydrated, and actually the glass of water they have the pill with, the glass of water is doing more good for them than the actual pill is. But it is about becoming more aware, isn't it? And I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Excuse me, with Link for Growth, and what we're doing by bringing together people like yourselves, both of you, and other people who are also in these fields, is we start to provide people with information, alternatives, and they can look and they can see that people actually look a bit better and they're looking a bit more healthy, and maybe it might rub a little bit, that might rub off on them.
Yes.
Emma, you first.
All right, okay. No, I think that it's an interesting point you make about the whole, you know, going back to what you said about the you know, I could be run over by a bus thing. You know, funnily enough, when I was chronic alcoholic and a smoker at the same time, I used to say that, you know, people used to say, oh, don't you think, you know, you're drinking a bit too much? Like, oh, no, you know, I'm having fun, you know, I could be run over by a bus, you know, and then, you know, because I'm enjoying myself so much, you know, and that was my classic line for years and years. And, you know, and actually the point is that, you know, that again, you know, that's about, you know, just try and eat whole food. Oh, I can see you, Anne.
Yeah. Now, what did I say at the start of this? You will miraculously appear during the show, and look what's happened.
Excellent. So, you know, really, it was the excuse, you know, and of course, there's fear about this. It's fear of change and everything, you know, because we know that. I knew that life, and I knew, you know, and I think that, yeah, the ongoing thing is actually if you eat, you know, well. For actually not, it doesn't take that long of eating well before you suddenly start to wake up every day going, wow, oh my God, you know, I feel amazing. And then, you know, years later, it's so funny because obviously I'm quite a few years sober now, and I mean, I relate it to alcohol. It's the same. I've done it with food before, and obviously I gave up smoking and all sorts of things. So, but that sort of feeling where you actually think, actually, you know, I wouldn't put that into my body now, even if someone said, here's a magic pill, so you know, you can stop drinking when you want, and it's not going to kill you. I wouldn't. It's a toxin. You know, I choose not to put it inside my body anymore, because I remember even a small amount of alcohol. You know, even the times I was trying to moderate the drinking, a glass of wine, I still felt rubbish. You know.
I've got a Christmas party tomorrow night. Thanks for that.
Oh, sorry. That's all right. You have a choice, Chris. You have a choice. And no, but I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's about how you want to feel, and on an ongoing basis, you know. And actually, the fact is that if you swap your, you know, McDonald's every day for wholesome food that actually, you know, is really tasty, and you don't necessarily have to be vegan or vegetarian, you know, any type of healthy diet, actually the long-term benefits, it just you just feel better. That's it. It's quality of life. But like you say, sort of going to things like Link for Growth, I think, where you're able to, obviously, you can't sit people down and lecture them and say you have to eat like this, and of course, because everyone has free will and we all have to make a choice, and people are at different stages in their life with that, and but the ability to kind of share, and like you say, if someone says, wow, you're looking good today, how's that happen? Well, and it's like that, and it's like an osmosis thing, and then people can think, oh, well, I might try that, and passing on. So it's the sharing of knowledge.
Yeah. So Anne, coming on to you now, we can see you in all your glory now. So, long-term effects, we're looking at them here right now, of taking care of yourself, basically, because if we don't take care of ourselves, the government's not looking after us as individuals. The doctors haven't got the time to take care of us, and they're not really that interested. To be honest, even our spouses, etc., they've got their own lives they're leading, and okay, they might be helping with the food choices. But at the end of the day, it's down to each and every single one of us to look after ourselves, isn't it?
Oh, without any shadow of a doubt. If I'd kept on going to the doctors, they'd have put me on statins immediately. And when you actually look at the damage that statins can do to the body, then I would have gone down the slippery slope to what are regarded as age-related illnesses. And I was determined 9 years ago that was not going to happen. The one thing that I think is really important from my perspective, and that is, I know that there's an awful lot of dyed-in-the-wool type people who get on their soapboxes, and they sort of like preach at people about what they should and they shouldn't do, whereas I've taken a completely different tack. In fact, what I've done is that I love pizza. I used to live on pizza and chips, and so I now have created a wheat-free and dairy-free delicious pizza, and I make crisps, cheese and onion crisps, again without any cheese and without any potatoes, and I make a bread without any wheat or grains or anything, and I do a lot of this. I make a lot of foods that people really, really love, but I do my version of it. It's like I was saying to David the other day, oh, I need to go off, I need to go and make pizza and crisps. And he went, that sounds terrible. He said, but I know that your version of it is going to be superiorly healthy, and that's what I do. And so, in fact, funnily enough, a lot of people find that the foods that I create, they love the taste. And I think the worst thing that people find if they try and change their diet is if they think that they're going to have to live on foods that they hate the taste of, or that is bland or boring or whatever. My foods are not. They're absolutely delicious.
That's what herbs and spices are for, isn't it? It's to make food that would otherwise be quite bland, but make it. And I think actually what you described there, and I know I found that when I started when I went raw, making stuff out of dried tomatoes.
Oh yeah, sun-dried tomatoes.
Yeah, and you can do all sorts. So I made a salad with like taco meat, which was made out of just sun-dried tomatoes and walnuts and various other bits and pieces. And then the sour cream was made out of cashew nuts with a bit of lemon juice and stuff. So suddenly, and it was a delicious meal. Excuse me, a delicious meal. And I couldn't finish it because actually it was just too much of it. But it's like you have to think differently. And what you're saying there is you become far more creative about what's going on, and you start to explore things, and you don't have to eat it's not rubbish food, it's great food actually. It's infinitely superior, and you're not sacrificing a whole load, and to be honest, you don't even have to do so much washing up, so it's quite good like that as well, isn't it? Because it's,
well, washing up is really, really easy because nothing is actually cooked onto the dishes. It's amazing.
Yeah. Right, well, I'm going to come on now to another subject, which you mentioned it very, very briefly there, Anne. You talked about the doctors putting you on statins.
Yeah.
And there was, it was about 2 years ago now, I think, there was this idea that everybody over 50 by default would be issued with statins, which was an attempt to reduce the amount of people that had high cholesterol. Now, I want to just throw this out there because most people, and I've done a talk on this a few times, and people say, well, you're not a doctor, Chris, why should we believe you? And it's like, well, I ask them, what do you think cholesterol is then? And the normal stock answer is, it's that sticky stuff that clogs up your arteries. That is the stock answer. Now, where do people get that from? Well, they're going to get that from doctors, unfortunately. And doctors, I've seen leaflets in doctors, in surgeries, which basically encourage that kind of thinking. But of course, we all need cholesterol. It's fundamentally absolutely essential for the working of the body.
It's a necessary ingredient for building cell membranes and hormones and producing vitamin D and bile. But there are actually two different sorts of cholesterol. There's HDL and LDL, and high density lipoprotein, HDL, is capable of removing cholesterol from the blood to the liver and out through the bile, so it's actually called good cholesterol. And low density lipoprotein, LDL, carries cholesterol to the cells, and it is here that the cholesterol is more likely to contribute to the cholesterol for the HDLs to pick up. It results in the buildup of cholesterol in the blood.
I mean, one of the things that a lot of people, I say to people, they say, oh no, cholesterol is going to cause heart disease and it clogs up the arteries. Now, I say to people, if you've got a stream and you've got water flowing through that stream, where is it likely to silt up most? Where the water's moving fastest or where it's moving slowest? And the answer is obvious, and it's where it's moving slowest. Yet in the heart, the blood is moving as fast as anywhere, right? It's the last place that you're going to get artery cholesterol build-up, except if the artery is already damaged, in which case the cholesterol is going to try and do a job of trying to repair it. So actually, it's trying to do a good job, and it's actually when that breaks off that you get the problem. So have you come across much of this, Emma, about cholesterol and stuff, and going about your work?
I'll be honest with you, Chris, I don't know an awful lot about cholesterol. I'm a little bit better on the whole, the fats and the healthy fats, but from my own personal experience, I had disastrously high cholesterol at one point, which miraculously, once I gave up drinking, it went back to what it should be, and I haven't ever had any cholesterol problems ever since.
Well, that's an interesting question, because the reason that you had high cholesterol, what was the explanation of that?
Well, actually, there was no explanation given, really. I mean, I had to have. I mean, there was all sorts of things going on in my body at the time, because my body was being bombarded by a zillion different toxins, from pharmaceutical toxins to recreational toxins. So it would have been, but I was never really given any. I had to have regular blood tests because of the type of medication I was on. Because the medication can cause high cholesterol, it can also cause diabetes, it can also cause any liver failure and kidney failure and all sorts of things. So I had to be regularly blood tested with lots of different things. And But you know, I as I say, within must have been really short space of time, within less than 6 months of abstaining from alcohol. As I say, the next time I had my blood tested and the cholesterol, oh wow, your cholesterol seems to be all right now.
That wouldn't be a surprise to you, though, I don't think, because the liver is responsible for the management of the cholesterol levels in the body. And if you're bombarding it with alcohol, you're likely to be impeding its capability, I would have thought.
There are several things that you should be doing and several things that you should not be doing if you want to manage your cholesterol levels. I mean, for example, whole grain products and things like well, vegetables really, high in fiber, mild spices, and moderate the fruit and moderate the alcohol. You do not have to cut out alcohol completely. It's a myth that alcohol causes cholesterol problems. It's more likely things like red meat and seafood and milk and hydrogenated fats and aspirin and smoking second-hand cigarettes. I mean, not smoking, but second-hand cigarette smoking as well. You know, being in a smoky atmosphere. I mean, it's fantastic now that we can go out to a pub and not have to breathe in other people's smoke now. It's much more pleasant to go out for a drink now than it is to than it used to be. But it's increasing the amount of vegetables and the whole grains and decreasing the amount of red meat and the sugar and so on will help balance the cholesterol. Obviously, if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, then there's an awful lot of sugar in the alcohol, and that can exacerbate the cholesterol problems, but it isn't alcohol per se. Overindulgence in alcohol, yes, but not. I mean, I drink. I'm not a heavy drinker. I used to be a heavy drinker, but if I want to relax at the weekend, I will have a drink.
I did quite a lot of work and quite a lot of research on cholesterol, and it's a really interesting topic. Because what I was looking for was I was looking for a correlation between fat consumption and cholesterol level. And if you check it out, there isn't one, because actually fat can't be turned into cholesterol. There is no capability of the body to turn fat into cholesterol. Just no capability. So the things that I think what people mistake is that if you eat lots of red meat or you drink lots and having lots and lots of booze, what you end up doing, I think, is impeding the liver's capability to function as it should be.
Yes.
And when you impede it, you essentially prevent its capability to regulate cholesterol levels. And I think it's more of a secondary issue, not that eating a lump of cheese is going to raise your cholesterol levels, because it can't turn fat into cholesterol anyway. So, well, it's a whole interesting subject, and I would encourage people who are interested about cholesterol to go and actually look at the facts. What you get from the doctor's surgery and the hospitals isn't facts. It's what they're told by pharmaceutical companies to tell us, and it's a bit lazy, really. But anyway, low fat and diet drinks. Now, don't you just love diet drinks?
Whoa, no way, no way. No, diet drinks contain aspartame, and aspartame has been shown to cause cancer in rats. So I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. Anything that's called NutraSweet or aspartame or anything like that was actually created by the same company that created Agent Orange. So I don't trust them at all.
And I know people who are passionate about their sodas and stuff like that. So Emma, are you a soda drinker, or is those days gone, or?
Well, I was about to say no, but then at Link for Drinks the other night, I think I had 3 tins of fizzy pop. So, but no, at home, actually, my children, you know, fortunately, have come round to know there are certain food products, including fizzy drinks, that don't get in my house except on treat occasions. Even then, I'm reluctant to. I don't know. It's a bit like I wouldn't reward. You know, I don't know. Even then, it's that whole kind of then it's that forbidden, you know, thing. I don't know, but because it's just so. I just think that once we start to nourish ourselves with proper, you know, water. I started giving, you know, my children from me for their packed lunches get a bottle of mineral water to take to school with them. And the fact when they first started having packed lunches, you know, a year or so ago, they were like, "Oh, Mum, you know, but Dad gives us, you know, this stuff. I don't care what he gives you, having water." But you know, so I don't, because it's damaging and it's addictive. You know, you might think I'm obsessive about addiction, but you see it all the time. I mean, when I was working with groups of people with mental ill health, you know, it's people think that it's the obvious things that get us addicted. You know, the alcohol, the you know, the heroin, the cocaine, or whatever. But actually, I'm sat with somebody coming off Red Bull. You know, it's the most hideous thing. You know, somebody who's drinking like, you know, 25 tins of Red Bull a day. You know, this woman was in agony. I had 2 women who were addicted to Red Bull, and they you know, and it was hideous. It was awful for them. And
they were addicted to the caffeine in that, probably.
And the caffeine, you know, and bless them, they came off it, and I just think because it's empty nutrients, and you know, and same way, you know, for me, you know, alcohol's empty nutrients as well. And so my children, they don't have fizzy drinks at home, except on special occasions. I'm not a complete, you know, purist about it, but I will treat myself. You know, when I go out, I might have a Coke just for a variation, but or something like that. But you know, certainly as a matter of course, I don't drink it. And the whole diet products thing is really interesting, because for years and years and years, I was a massive yo-yo dieter, I did it all, you know, absolutely, I did it all. And I had specially create, you know, I'd have the specially created diet meals and and all that sort of thing, which are full of additives and sweeteners and all that stuff. It's hideous, and you know, I never was able to consistently keep my weight down, you know, and actually the stuff tasted awful, and it had all sorts of weird other side effects as well. But eventually came across a chap who's quite well known, called Patrick Holford, and started reading about that. And it's just, again, about sort of common sense, eating healthily, and what some people would say is, you know, fatty foods, you know, things like coconut milk, and you know, the brown rice, and the sort of olive, you know, I'll put olive oil and balsamic vinegar on my salad. And my friend will say, "Oh no, why haven't you got some low-fat mayonnaise?" You know, and I'm like, because I won't put that stuff in my body anymore. But there's hundreds of calories in olive oil. It's gonna, you know, make you really fat. And I'm like, well, you know, my body can use that stuff. You know, it can't use all that list of hundreds of things that are in that low-fat salad cream. You know, so
yeah. So I mean, this is an interesting question, because you're talking about fats there, and obviously there are fats that are much more beneficial to us than others, and we need to know what they are. So you were mentioning earlier, and trans fats and stuff like that, and then what being good for us, not. But you've got
as Emma just pointed out, coconut milk, coconut oils. They cannot be stored in the body. They can only be used by the body for energy and so on. So coconut oil is one of the best things that you can use in food preparation, in all sorts of things. It's important to actually have some of that every single day. And avocados, which are I think there are certain GPs that say, you know, you shouldn't have them because they're very high in fat. Well, they're very high in good fat. So, for example, I make a green smoothie most days where I put a banana, half an avocado, and some apple juice, and some green leaves, whether that's sometimes it's spinach, sometimes it's kale, sometimes it's a green powder, but I blend that all up together, and it tastes absolutely divine. And it's full of healthy fats and potassium, and greens are actually one of the things that are left off the food pyramid, and they are essential for good health. So green leaves every day and vary them, and that will really help boost your system on multiple levels.
Yeah, I mean, it is. There was in Link for Growth we've got on in Pinterest. We've got a board for TED Talks, and on there was a lady that basically had what is it, MS, and she basically learned the problem. Someone's got some feedback there. Do you want to just mute yourself a little bit? Just see who it is. Is it potentially you, Anne, or is it potentially you? It might be you, Anne, actually. Yeah, it is. Can you just mute yourself just to see if it'll... do you know how to do that?
Yeah, that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's fine. That's it. It's just it was giving some feedback there. So basically, this lady, what she did was she was a doctor herself, and she was teaching in the medical college. And basically, what happened was that she got MS, and she started to get worse and worse. And she was following the prescribed route, and it was just, in the end, she was in a wheelchair. And what she did was she couldn't work in the end, and so she basically looked at what the problem with MS was, and it's basically a problem with the mitochondria in the brain. And what happens when you've got MS is that you can't produce certain enzymes or certain chemicals which are required by the mitochondria, so they gradually deteriorate, and that affects obviously functions of the body. So she basically learned what foods had them in them by default, and she started eating platefuls of this food, and most of it was greens, and within 2 years she was cycling for charity. Right. So you just can't. I mean, we are what we eat. There is no other words you can say for it, because ultimately, and we'll talk about this in a minute, your body reproduces itself. Well, what does it reproduce itself with? It's what you stick in your mouth, surely. So
yeah. We actually can build a completely new body every 7 years, and some parts of it get built a lot quicker. And the problem is that if you are feeding your body foods that the body does not necessarily recognize as being nutritious and healthy for the body, that's all it's got to build itself with. And although a lot of people imagine that they suddenly become ill, it's actually been building up for years and years and years. I mean, as I said, I'd been vegetarian from the age of 15, but I was a vegetarian that lived predominantly on cheese on toast, cheesy pizzas, cheddars, and beer. That's what I lived on predominantly. And so hardly surprising when I had my medical many years later that I was up at a size 18, and I think you can probably see I'm not that anymore.
So let's just talk about that very, very briefly. What you were doing there was essentially creating, it's like smoking, I guess. It's like any of these things. You don't actually know you're having a problem because the body is very, very capable
Very.
of 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 making you function with the wrong things. But actually, you feel crap, but you get used to feeling like that, and
Yeah.
actually, and you normalise it. And actually, it's only when like Emma's done and like you've done, where you've actually sort of sorted yourselves out and you come out of that, you realise how great it is to feel good every single day. And actually, you were living it almost like a hell, but you didn't realise it because it's normalised. So it's interesting, and I think that's kind of what we've got to get across to people is that you can be much better.
Yeah. Yes. I've actually helped lots of people turn their health around, from going down the slippery slope into an early old age, to becoming younger and younger every year. It is possible. You don't have to do it. You can get younger every year. You just have to rebuild yourself with healthier versions of the foods that you generally like. Unless, of course, you like donuts. In that case, it might be more difficult, but hey, there you go.
Treat every now and then. Emma.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to add something about, the idea of nourishment. So as well, because obviously, we're kind of concentrating largely on food here, which is obviously what the topic is really. But also, when we're looking at nourishment, I think there's for me, there's a lot of evidence also to show that if we don't get the right amount of sleep, that's going to affect us, and looking at how we as human beings need to get our needs met, in a real holistic way. So we've got the food nourishment, but we've got to have the sleep nourishment, we've got to have the activity nourishment, we have to have the love nourishment in our lives, the connection, the education, the security in our lives, the whole environment and the meaning in our lives. And I think that, when that's all put together, that it's a whole package of stuff, so nourishment becomes a broader thing, because there's a lot of evidence to show that if there are certain needs that we have that aren't being met, then it's going to affect our overall well-being.
So what you mentioned to me when we were talking the other week was that if people are unhappy, they might overeat because actually you can't be unhappy when you're eating. So basically, something is not being met, therefore it's being overcompensated in some other area of their life.
Yeah, and then of course, then what happens is that one thing becomes out of balance, and then we search to get our needs met in a way that's possibly not the most healthy. Sort of thinking about connection as human beings, we need to have connection with each other as well, and so for doing things like Link for Growth is really, really important, because it's that opportunity to connect with a wider society, also at the same time perhaps learn about this stuff, and then we're less likely to, you start to feel better about yourself in certain areas, and then it makes you want to improve how you feel. So maybe if you're not eating that well, you might go somewhere and start to meet people and look at, and then you think, oh wow, actually that felt good. Oh, and you might go out for a walk with somebody and you think, wow, that felt good, and then you start to want to take care of yourself a bit better, and then you want to perhaps eat more healthily, and you try and look for ways then to improve how you feel that's really healthy, rather than trying to dampen down stuff with with the sugary food, the low fat stuff. And also it's all tied up in a massive industry which is obsessed with how people look. That's the other thing, this kind of the dieting and the diet foods, and we can name all of the major dieting clubs that have their own brand of food. I mean, as far as I can tell, the baked beans that you get in the shop that are own brand ones are no different to the very expensive tin of a well-known weight loss industry beans. Do you know what I mean?
I
But
don't know who
it's
you
the way
mean.
it's all packaged. What do you mean? You know, that one's 4p and that one's £4. Oh yeah, but that's got, you know, 2 W's on it. I'll have that one. So it's that whole the whole thing, and of course, you know, the diet industry is fueled by unhappy people. You know, because you go and sit there and, you know, and get ridiculed for a couple of hours every week, and then you know, not feeling that much better about yourself, and go home and have a couple of cakes on weigh-in night because you've got another whole week to lose, to lose it for the next one. So it's fueled by unhappiness, really, rather than people kind of getting a sense of you know, their own internal value from within themselves. It's all related, you know. So nourishment comes in many forms, and I think that when we start connecting with each other, you know, those people, like you say, we don't want to sit and preach. You know, Anne was saying earlier about sitting on your, you know, your soapbox and preaching to people. We don't want to preach, but once we start to connect with people, those people start to learn more, start to value themselves more, feel like they have a role in the community and in society, and then want to take care of themselves, because it's like, oh God, yeah, I don't want to die an early death from drinking 10 litres of Coke every day. I'm going to try what she said.
Have you heard of an organisation called Link for Growth?
I've mentioned it a few times.
In danger of becoming more of a Link for Growth bore than I am. If you unmute yourself, and because I muted you a little while back, but I can't unmute you. So there you go. Okay. So that's absolutely right, though, isn't it? You've got to look at the whole person. You're talking about spirituality. You're talking about valuing yourself and being valued by others. If you don't have some of these core basic things in your place, then you're never going to change your eating habits. It's a lifestyle change, isn't it?
My journey to better eating has been completely mirrored by the fact that I used to be a very reactionary, stressful, angry person, and I used to cause all kinds of arguments with my partners and so on, so that they got blown out of the water left, right and centre. But I have learned so much in the last, in fact that's 21 years I've done that. I discovered lots of, I walked out on religion 21 years ago, and I walked out on my marriage at the same time, and so I lost all the support that I had at that time, because once you become a divorced woman and you're not in the church and whatever, you are really on your own, and that's where I was. And so I went on a journey of self-discovery, and I found the root of happiness, so that I live as a child of the light. I love the light. I live in the light, and my life is amazing, and I help others to find how wonderful they are too. I know that most people don't realize just how amazing they are, but I see it in them, and when I see it, that's what then they see it themselves. I worked for 9 years in a mental health institute, and helped the service users there to see themselves in a different way, and a lot of them started to come off their medication and started to feel wonderful about themselves. I know that it is how you feel inside that really makes the difference to your ability to start making the changes that are necessary to live to your highest potential. and that is food, that is mood, that is feelings, and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think we've sort of covered most of it. Like you say, Emma, it's the whole package really. We can't isolate food as just the one item.
Very
But
much so, yeah.
the last thing we have already touched on this, which is, the prevalence of cancer, and there's a lot of talk about, well, there's a lot more old people and they're going to get cancer, aren't they, because they're a lot older, and it's just a general deterioration of the body. But of course, we all know that in order to replicate a cell correctly and accurately, it needs to have the right ingredients to be able to do that. And if we're not feeding ourselves with the right ingredients, the likelihood is that we create more free radicals and they don't get out of the body like they should, and then they start having an impact. And so, I mean, and it's the same with diabetes, it's the same with all of these degenerative kind of diseases, is that things start going wrong because of a build-up of abuse. And what we're not sensitive to is that abuse and the effect it's having on us until it becomes a bit too extreme. But very often that's a bit too late for us to do something about it. So, I mean, you, Emma, I mean, well, probably both of you have been in some pretty dire places, but we just don't recognise that we're abusing ourselves until too late, really, do we?
I had an anal fissure because I was so badly constipated many years ago that I was in absolute agony with an anal fissure for 3 months. I've had 2 children, so I know what it feels like to be in pain in childbirth, and that was 3 months worth of much more excruciating pain. I've had kidney stones. That is unbelievably painful. I only discovered that I had kidney stones when I started to vomit, and I couldn't digest anything, and I got rushed into hospital and put on pethidine, and then they had to put a stent in because they didn't have the machine to break down the kidney stones, and so I was on bromelain for 3 months because the doctor went away on holiday, and so I felt like I had cystitis for 3 months. I've just been through some awful physical situations, and now I'm great.
Emma?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any, thankfully, I don't have any sort of personal experience of, cancer, and but again, for me, it always comes back to the looking at the whole situation, and I won't go into details now about the energetic, the wider environment, but that's very, very important as well. And there is some evidence. What I do know is through certain things that I've done and that I've looked at is about sort of the links to certain states of mind and awful diseases like cancer. So things like if we've spent our whole lives really angry, pent up resentment and things like that. And of course, for me, in the program of recovery that I follow for alcoholism, we talk about resentment is a massive thing, and again, it's we kind of get tied up with the actual, I think for me it's very important about the way we think, like you said at the beginning. Obviously when I'm talking about emotional well-being, and as you know, I do energy healing as well, and looking at things at an energetic level is totally different, because in that sense our thoughts have the same level of power as absolutely anything else that we can touch, so if not more. So of course, when we look at our all sorts of physical illnesses, for me, I have to come again. I will always come back to, and I'll give an example. I was diagnosed with gallstones about 3 years ago, and I was told, that I would have to, by a surgeon, that the only way, the consultant said, well, I have to remove your gallbladder, and I said, well, I don't want you to, thank you very much. So he sort of said, well, you're crazy, So I said, well, you're being rude because I don't want you to take my gallbladder. We had this like standoff for a long time, So I said, well, I want you to, I'd appreciate it if you, maybe if that's a last resort, then you can have my gallbladder. But in the interim, I'd like to do other things, please. Well, you're insane, because obviously he didn't actually say that, but essentially the implication being that I was some kind of loony, for thinking that I could somehow think my gallbladder well again. And actually, that's exactly what I did. And and I've spoken to actually Tanya Clark and I had an interesting conversation about that and the positive mindset. And of course, I had utter faith that through, I saw medical herbalist. I did, and I had my, energy healing for it, and all sorts of things. And I had these letters. I mean, in the end, it transpired that he was going to take my gallbladder out without ever having seen a scan that showed whether I had gallstones or not, which was a whole separate issue. And I've been booked in twice for surgery. So, I was slightly, a bit miffed, let's say, when I discovered that he hadn't even seen it. But and ultimately I stood with it, and I had utter faith that it was going to go, and that I wouldn't have it. And I had a lot of gallbladder attacks. I'm telling you now, I've had 3 children. It's very, very, very painful, indeed. And I haven't had. Now it's been almost a year since I had a gallbladder attack, and again, for me, it was a process of getting to the core emotion behind it. For me, and when I was angry, and a certain pattern of thinking that got me to the state where my body was erupting in various nasty physical, it was manifesting in a physical way in my body, and so for me that's always really important. State of mind is always important.
Fabulous. Well, ladies, we're out of time.
Okay.
We're out of time. How about that? So, last words, Anne. Just anything you want to say, just to sort of wrap up. Really, we were talking. That's an interesting point you're making there, Emma. And of course, the mind is capable of doing so many things, and foods.
I've actually done 13 liver gallbladder cleanses. And in the process of doing 13 of them, I have removed probably 1,000 stones. I captured them and photographed them as well, so if you want to see.
More stones than I've got in my garden.
Yeah, they're very small stones. They're little stones, and most of them are green sort of colour. But I've captured them all and photographed them all and dated them all and so on. I'm a bit bizarre like that, but
get out more.
I do now. I go to Link for Growth, and I'm going to.
I'm going to be outboard, aren't I?
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Any last? Always nice to have you on. Lovely to have you on, Anne. Actually, it's been marvellous to have you on.
I'm glad that you can see me now, because I don't know what I did, but I fiddled around, and here I am.
It was we manifested you. We manifested you back on the show. Thanks, Emma, for coming on. Always good to have you on, and we'll have to look at. There's another 8 of these current affairs shows. So if you fancy coming on again, either of you, then they're all listed. All the contents of the shows. We've got one more wellness show to do, which we'll probably do before Christmas. So you're welcome to come on back on there. We'll see if we can drag someone else on the show as well. So thank you very much.
Excellent. I'll see you both tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay.
Bye.
Thanks now. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.